Hi everyone, Jane Applegath here, founder of the Epic Vision Zone, where we say it's your life, your story, and make it epic. Each show we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dreams so that you can live your epic life now. You can listen to the audio version on your favorite app or watch it on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, "I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." Dr. Paul Zeitz is a preventive medicine physician, epidemiologist, author, and award-winning champion of global justice and human rights. With over 35 years of advocacy and political movement leadership, he is the initiator of the unify movements, a movement-building platform dedicated to catalyzing new love-centered social, economic, and political systems committed to our collective repair, justice, and peace. His new book, Revolutionary Optimism: 7 Steps for Living as a Love-Centered Activist, Dr. Paul shares an indispensable roadmap for personal and global liberation. Because, he says, when we reclaim our power and unify with others on the path of love, we get to make the difference that we've always secretly known we could. Through Revolutionary Optimism and the Revolutionary Optimism Podcast, Dr. Paul awakens a new vision of peaceful, revolutionary transformation. And in the process, he inspires our collective flame to unify for healing and transformation. Currently, Dr. Paul serves as a co-convener of the U.S. National Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Movement, on the steering committee of the March for Equity, and serves on the Survivors Council for the HEAT initiative, which is dedicated to eradicating childhood sexual violence. Welcome, Dr. Paul. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Wow, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you.
Well, likewise, and I am so excited to delve into this topic. I was just saying earlier with Dr. Paul that I love the title of his book. It really has some fabulous energy and message behind it. So that being said, let's get started with what inspired you to write Revolutionary Optimism and the Steps for Living a Love-Centered Activist. And what do you hope people will gain from it?
Thank you. Great question. A couple years ago, I realized that 2024 was going to be a difficult, challenging year. And I was feeling called to make a love offering, basically. And I have been working on optimism and the practices of living with revolutionary optimism probably my whole life. But the process of writing the book was really to help me overcome my own sense of hopelessness and despair and frustration and the sense of anger that I had and betrayal at our government, for example, for not performing as it should. And those emotions took me into my bedroom, and I threw the blanket over my head and I said, I'm done with this. I've contributed what I had. So I go through that. And I find the suffering in the world overbearing and the dire situation that we're in. So I had to create something that would help me use my energy in a more positive way. And I've been working on that probably my whole life. So I decided to put the best practices together in a book that I wished I had when I was 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. Even 55, I would have taken a book like this to really just offer best practices, clear steps, interesting explorations, and make that available to whoever is ready for that and wants to explore that.
Yes, I could see the relevance of your book now. I mean, the timing is impeccable, and I'm sure, like you, seriously, the universe has maybe this was brewing inside you for a while, but there is no time like the present for a book of this kind. Because when you said you just wanted to throw the covers over your head and hide under, the covers and etc., there are many people that are feeling that way. And so this is absolutely the best time ever. And thank you for sharing that, because it is a process. Everything today is changing, and at a very rapid pace as well. So we also have that in our environment. And with that being said, then I'm curious, how do you define revolutionary optimism? And you did explain a little bit about the relevance in today's unsettled world. Can you share a personal illustration of its power, but more so also just explain what revolutionary optimism, how it's defined for you?
Yeah, so revolutionary optimism for me is defined as a way of living and loving on my life's path. And it
Mm,
becomes like a way of asking a question. How could I put love at the center of everything I
mm,
say, everything I do? And how can I imagine the possibility of transforming everything around me to be love centered, including our social, economic, and political systems? So it's just an inquiry. What would it look like
mm,
if every word out of my mouth was love centered? What would it look
mm,
like if the way that we organized our government and our society was putting love at the center? It would be completely different, is the answer.
mm,
And I use the book every day. I use these practices myself and other practices. But I went to Israel Palestine last week on a pilgrimage,
mm,
and man, I had to use every practice in here. It was like a stress test on living as a revolutionary optimist. But what got me there was because I felt called to go there. And as a revolutionary optimist, when you feel called, you go. And magic unfolded. And I came out of it with seeing the possibility of a peaceful resolution in the most
mm,
dire circumstances of war and conflict and hatred and trauma through the generations manifesting
mm,
right now. I still go there, and I connected with the Israelis and Palestinians that have been working together on a people's peace movement. And there's an organization called A Land for All that has developed a new political vision for a confederation of two independent states. Anyway, they've come up with this, and so our job in global solidarity would be to support their vision and help echo chamber it and help manifest it in the way that they want. So anyway, it is a way of living and being. And there's no right or wrong. It's like everyone does love centered action in their own way, and every action counts, including self care and self love, including caring for
mm,
loved ones, elderlies, children, partners, your neighbors. All that is love centered action. And when you see yourself as part of a love centered movement or love centered revolutions, and you realize that you're already in it, that's what I want. I want people to realize and pray and receive the praise that they deserve for all that we're doing,
mm.
instead of like thinking I'm not doing enough, or what I'm doing doesn't have an impact. I hear this. I said that to myself a lot, and I hear that from a lot of people, and it's like, whoa! I hear you as like doing amazing things. It's you are it. We are it.
Yes, absolutely. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. How incredible that, there is something positive happening in the Middle East, and yet our media focuses on the negative, but we don't want to go there. That could be a whole nother podcast. But that is beautiful, beautiful news. And I understand when you said you felt a calling to go there, to share, what you have, and also to learn and to see that there is a love humanity over there, and it gives all of us hope and encouragement that, like you said, can we pause and just say, how can I put love into this whenever we're in, like you said, either stress or conflict or anger, and just having that awareness, just that moment to pause and putting those words into your mind. How can I add love to this? Or how can I inject compassion into this? Completely could change your reaction, your response, your feeling. It
Mhm.
really is powerful. Thank you. I mean, I could feel that. So I know you mentioned a little bit about self-compassion and love. And
Yeah.
I know in today's world, because especially in North America, we don't value self-compassion. In other words, giving back to ourselves, celebrating ourselves, like you mentioned, having an impact. And you think, oh, how can I possibly have an impact? It's just little old me. But in fact, all of
Mm.
us have an impact on every individual that we touch, and even the environment in which we live. So why are self-compassion and love vital to personal healing as well as, a global, but more so on a personal level? And how can we learn a little bit more about getting ourselves into that place of self-love?
It's essential. Yeah, it's very important work, and it's an ongoing journey for me, and I think for all humans to continuously cultivate that state of self love. And the first three steps, steps one, two, and three, are really about self liberation, about living
Mm.
into our purpose, our power, and expressing ourselves in our highest self, whatever that is. And I offer tools and practices to explore for each person to explore. And I do think it's also really possible and could be even better to find a group to go through the steps
Mm.
with, because this is hard work. And it, like, by doing it with a group, you have evidence that you're not alone, because you'll see that everyone has the same stuff going on. And it's like it makes it more fun, and you get the support that you need as you go through the practices. I have 23 RXs, or prescriptions or practices in the book, which are really things to practice with and play with and experiment with by yourself or with a group.
Mhm. I love that. I love, like you said, you recommend bringing a group together, because then you, like you said, you realize that number one, you're not alone. And number two, you have shared energy so that you can experience from the other. And then maybe someone will say, well, what about this? Or what about that? So there becomes a collective. And then when you
Right.
leave, that person then goes and influences someone else. So yes, very powerful. And you mentioned three of the steps. What would be the other four steps, if you could just give us an outline so that people can get an
Yeah, the
idea
overview.
of, right, the
Yeah.
overview?
So the first steps are it's go time, self liberation, and unified consciousness. That's all really internal self work, the work of self liberation, and it gives you stories and wisdom and practices. Step four is the heart of the book, in my view. It's called peace crafting, and it's really about our relationship between each other. So even this space between us right here is the space between us. And so I'm actually peace crafting right now. I'm practicing the way of peace crafting, and I offer a 4-part cycle that I can go over if you want about what peace crafting is. And as I created this, very tense times, a lot of polarization, a lot of division, even in my own family. There's a breakdown, and I was creating this during the last year, and it really is working on me. It's living in me
Mm.
now. Actually, it's spinning in my head, and it works like in my relationship with my wife. And I'm like, oh my god, where did that peace crafting wheel go? And or any relationship, and also with organizations and in public communications as well. It's a powerful practice. So it works, internally even peace crafting with myself, the voices in my head that don't always agree, or so it can work at all levels. And then
Mm.
the second half of the book, the steps 5, 6, and 7, are really about our collective liberation, and it's about taking that inner liberation, that self fulfillment of ourselves. We're all on this path of awakening, and so wherever you're at on the path, then it's about the peace crafting wherever you're at in that, and then bringing that into imagineering, like imagining.
Mm.
I can go into these steps in more detail. And step 6 is called sparking peaceful revolutions. It's about There are violent revolutions already underway, and I'm advocating for a counter force, a countervailing vortex of healing, repair, and transformation, love centered. We need to do that as quickly as possible. It's already happening, but we're not quite like, connecting and unifying. So that's what step 7 is. It's about unifying to that intent within ourselves, each person, and then collectively, like thinking about things interspiritually or interpartisanly or intersectionally. So there's a lot of ways that we separate everything out, and unifying is about connecting it and like creating that connective tissue.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I could see, how the inner work starts first, because I always say life is a practice. Like we're always practicing something if we're conscious. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals walk around unconscious, but that's people like yourself. And expressing what we need to learn, the knowledge that we need to gain in order to level ourselves up to that higher consciousness and tap into love. In the older days, they'd say, oh, you're just a hippie, you're into love and peace, the love child kind of thing. But really, there is a lot of significance and a lot of depth to that once you get into the knowledge and the science of that, which is now being proven to
Mm,
really make a difference, not only in our own personal lives, but in our communities, like you said. And we'll get into the movement because I'm really interested in that. So you
yeah.
did name peace crafting as one of the strategies. Maybe you can extrapolate that a little bit, because I was really interested in that. That would be wonderful. That
Yeah, I
one
love
of
it.
the things that
It's
you can
my honor to
implement.
share about it. Yeah, so the way it works or the way that the book explains it, is that there's a four-part cycle or wheel that operates in peace crafting. So the first part of it is becoming a listening friend, practicing being a listening friend, like listening, like not talking, wait, and really understanding another person. And we can tell when we're being listened to and when we're not being. And I have all these practices about active listening and all that. Then the second part of it is embracing multiple perspectives. What I have found is that when I think I'm right and I have the only right perspective, then I'm not really being a good listener. So the idea is that from the being a listening friend is then to also embrace multiple perspectives and recognize that there are multiple perspectives. I actually think there might be 8 billion multiple perspectives because there's 8 billion people, and each person may have their own genetic or sourcing, plus their life experience, plus their education and whatever, cultural approaches, and it's everyone has you. And my perspectives are not static; they change. They're dynamic. So it creates like I find that people always tell me my perspective, and I'm like, wait. They think they know who I am, and I'm like, I don't even know what my perspective is. How could you know? So, like, be curious about other people's perspectives over time as well. Okay, so the third part is then love speech, and this is really I'm still working on this. But so when you're listening to other perspectives, sometimes you don't agree, or you get angry, or you get hurt. I experience sadness or grief. I want to, all kinds of emotions. I get triggered, and so the practice is no matter what is being said, and no matter how I'm reacting to it, the practice is I use love speech. I only use words that lift other people up. I use counter shaming language. I'm aiming towards this, I should say. I'm aiming towards always being aware that everyone is managing shame, and that my words can be shame inducing, and that I have to be mindful of my words matter and I should be counter shaming. Uh, you know, and there's all these practices about how to do that. So the last step is trust, building trust.
Oh.
So you've gone through listening, multiple perspectives, love speech. Then I have a trust part of it, which is some people think that trust is like an on and off switch. Like I trust you or I don't. Like there's something that happens and then I don't trust you and that's it, it's done. I have a concept in the book called a trustometer, which means that trust is a dynamic thing, that you can go up and down on trust. And so I always you have to have safe boundaries. And there are times where you have to cut people off or cut organizations off for whatever reason, on the one hand. On the other hand, if you're just using the on and off switch, you end up being isolating of yourself. So I'm always taking the stand of being open to rebuilding trust. And like people can go up or down, and organizations can go up or down, or parts of the movement can go up or down when we get into collective change. So the trustometer applies both, interpersonally as well as organizationally and coalition and so forth, so forth.
Right.
So that's the cycle. And if once start playing with it, and like, oh my God, I just had a fight with my wife. I'm like, what happened to my peace crafting wheel? I be, that was not love speech, Paul. And in other circumstances, it's like, oh, but it's something to live into. It's something to grow into for the rest of my life. I'm sure I'll be living into that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I love it because it brings you to awareness when you have these in your mind and they're there at the forefront. And like you said, you're like, wait a minute, I just had this argument with my wife and that didn't work in the previous years or whatever. Before you started practicing this, you wouldn't even be aware of that. You would just walk away, or people just hold that anger or that the
Right.
the the fight in them, and then they just that becomes that. But it's absolutely vital, and I love that you have these buttons, so to speak, that you could say, okay, now I need to go back and I have to practice that love speech or whatever might be, because as they say, the neurons that fire together wire together. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
having that reaction, we can go back and start rewiring our reactions and
True.
rewiring our ability to see things from another perspective and not let it enter us personally or affront us. But I'm really curious, Paul, about the love speech. Can you give us an example of what that is? Because I was trying to think of, okay, what is love speech? I'd really love to know.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. There's a story in the book where I'm uh, I'm a supervisor, and I'm in a team meeting, and one of my partners on the team is reporting about having completed a contract that was 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and I was like, I went into this like, can we? I was in my efficiency mode, and I was like, is there any way that we could have done this faster? I know and then I saw that my criticism of what had happened, or my questioning of how we could do it better, actually triggered this person to go into like a really closed down, shamed
Mm,
space, because I did it in front of the whole
mm,
team. And um and i i was just like off. I had no negative intention. I thought this person was an amazing worker, but that's not how it occurred to them. And I realized that I was responsible for my impact on them, even though I didn't mean that.
right.
It still had that impact. And I watched it happen, and I said, okay, let's move on to the next thing. So, like, what I should have said was, "Oh, Sally, thank you so much for your great work of getting that done on time. I really appreciate that. I apologize for thinking about efficiency as at this point when we're all so busy and overstretched. And let's come back to that down the road. But great work. You're amazing. Thank you. I honor your work." If I would have said
Mm,
that, it would have been a whole different, kettle of fish.
right. Yes, absolutely. The power of our words. But that's a wonderful example. Thank you so much. Yes, because like you said, whatever mode you're in, you just get on that treadmill and you're like boom, boom, boom. And then you're like, oh boy, what and that's the awareness, right? It's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I've been there, done that. I used to be in the financial industry, and
Yeah.
oh boy, was I stressed and was I a nasty person. Oh boy, I would have failed your book miserably. But that's the
You can't
environment.
fail it. No, no, no. Please, I don't want your listeners to think there's like
Okay.
a failure possibility. this is the game of life. It's
Okay.
like I've been a jerk, you've been a jerk. We're humans. Humans can be jerks.
Yeah.
It's like, and we can choose not to be, right? Like you're saying, we can create new neuronic pathways and we can train ourselves. That's the thing that's so critical that you're saying, I believe, is like we have dominion over our brain. We don't
Yes.
have to be an autopilot, but it does
Yeah.
require awareness at work, like you're saying.
And so, your book takeaways, what do you hope that readers will take away from your book, both on an individual level and in terms of societal impact?
Yeah, so I am recommending that people read the book in groups, book clubs, or family groups, or friend groups. I believe that when you do this book together, you will deepen your relationships, you will deepen your friendships, and I think then you can support each other to take action on whatever you choose and in whatever way you choose. And so the book offers ways to become active in advocacy and campaigning and movement building, or at any level within your family, within your community, or nationally or globally. And I'm actually feeling like the book is also really helpful to help make sense, or sense making, about what's going on right now, because we are
Mhm.
going through a passage. Humanity will be going through a difficult phase. We have old systems that are breaking down, and we have the opportunity to create new ones if we get our act together. So I am inviting people to uh, really do this work now, so that even in the next 18 to 24 months, when things are really spiraling, that we can unify as a peaceful movement and bring that forward, and bring forward repair and healing, and unify with even with our enemy, and love
Mhm.
our enemies and help them heal. And I definitely put that to a test last week in Israel Palestine, when the Israeli police were trying to arrest a group of us, and I was terrified and I was angry and grief stricken about the fact that there was a starvation and a famine right down the road, and we were trying to deliver food and they wouldn't let us in.
Mm.
And I was able to use the practices in the book to transform all those negative emotions into love, and I offered them blessings of healing and freedom and peace. So that is a stance. I'm taking that stand, and
Right.
that's a choice, like you
Wow.
said. You have to choose that. I chose to put
Yes.
myself in that circumstance, and then the you know I'm so grateful I had this, because then I was able to deploy practices so that I could maintain myself as a loving presence, even in the face of all those other emotions.
Mm. Yes, and I'm sure they felt that. Like you can feel when a person is aggressive and coming towards you, or you feel that that person is sincere and means well. And that is incredible, Paul. Thank you for sharing that. And you probably also shifted their mindset. They probably thought, that's so wonderful, because you made them aware when they were, as soldiers, they're always on guard. I mean, that's their job. And they're
Right.
trained in that fashion. So, like you said, your past training, your beliefs, your what you bring to the world that you're in, that makes your world, their world right now, of course, is on edge. But for a moment there, you brought them insight into humanity. So that was beautiful. I'm
I don't
so
know. I hope so. I hope
we
you're
need
right.
more ambassadors like you to go over
Yeah,
there.
we felt like we were
Absolutely.
ambassadors, and we uh, we the key thing was, as being part of a peaceful movement, we planned this very carefully, and there were 20 cameras going, so we got
Mm.
widespread press around the world, and so and that's still happening, and it's part of this global movement of peaceful transformation that is becoming a little violent in places, and so I'm in the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., a politics of love. It's not that we're not fierce, It's not that we don't take a stand for what we believe in.
Right.
We do that from a place of moral clarity and moral
Mm.
conviction, actually. And
Right.
but we're not afraid in the face of violence and derision and all the things that will come at us and are coming at us, and we will win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's
Well,
not about winning, really. It's about we will all have the opportunity for redemption.
right.
Hopefully that will be the path, and that we can do repairing and healing. The oppressors are wounded and traumatized in their own way.
Mm. So I am very, very curious now about movement building, and they call you a movement builder. You have given that title, and give us some insight into being a movement builder and why movements matter.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So, like as individuals, or even individual organizations, or even individual coalitions of organizations, there is an opportunity to like understand how you're positioned in an ecosystem of organizations or even coalitions, and to like figure out ways that we can work together and how we can align ourselves. And so there are best practices for love centered movements. And the reason why I advocate for a movement perspective is that in order to have collective transformation that we're all seeking, we need to find ways of building connection and aligning and building power. So, no matter where you're positioned in an organization or as an individual, or sometimes you're working in coalitions, depending on what you're trying to get done, uh, the idea is that there are movements that can be created and that are dynamic, that are verbs that can be expanding, and so that you can bring people together and so that you can work together towards a common goal. So this could operate like I just heard a story of someone that read the book, and then there was a incident at the school board where one of the teachers got fired, and everyone was very upset. So a spontaneous movement emerged with the other faculty, the students, and the parents, and they like mounted a advocacy campaign to get this teacher reinstated at the school board level. And then the
Mm.
movement, I don't know what's going to happen. The movements can come and go, or they could become part of an ongoing way of connecting with people. So that can happen at a very, very local level. And then movements are happening at the global level. We're
Mm.
witnessing global solidarity movements on racial equity, about the need to heal the wounds from the caste systems that have made certain people more powerful over other people.
Well, you have created at Unify as a movement building platform, and what's love got to do with it? Because I know that there is a core of that is love.
So it's hashtag unify, just to clarify,
Hashtag.
rather than
Right.
at unify. It's a
At. Yes,
hashtag.
you're right.
And that's by design. The hashtag is kind of like a weave. So the
Hmm.
idea of unify is to weave together the various parts that we've been talking about. So there's like a visual symbology with the hashtag. But of course, hashtags are how we communicate now on social media, and specifically the younger generation. So the idea behind hashtag unified movements is a movement building platform where hashtags can be created to create movement identities, and that it can
Mm.
expand quite rapidly if there's a ripening and a readiness and a confluence of a collective consciousness. It's just a setup for that. So, for example, I've been starting out, and we've created hashtag Unify USA, and
Mm.
hashtag Unify USA is a space and a conversation with lots of different organizations and groups, and we're advocating for constitutional renewal and transformation. We're going for the root cause of the problems and the challenges that we're facing here in the United States. So the
Mm.
diagnosis is that we have constitutional rot. Our constitution is rotten. We need constitutional renewal and transformation. And if we don't do that, all these other things are never going to get resolved or healed. And so that's an example of that. So I have friends in Uganda that are thinking about hashtag unify Uganda or hashtag unify
Mm,
Nepal. Or in the United States, you could have hashtag unify Arizona or hashtag unify Scottsdale or hashtag
right.
unify Phoenix, whatever. So it's designed to replicate, self-replicate. It's open, it's like, it's an open movement building platform. So people can live into it as they choose. And
Right.
it's a solution to the challenge of, at all these levels that we're talking about, there's like a lot of people are out there wanting what I'm talking about, but they're organized in silos and they don't know how
Mm,
to like connect, and there's no like way to do it. So a movement building platform is a way that you can just create it, like hashtag unify for peace. That's what I'm proposing for Israel Palestine. And then
mm,
we can build a movement around that, and we can
right.
like connect for a period of time to get us through this transition after this war and this probable genocide is stopped. Then we can move into a peace phase. So that's the way I think of hashtag unify.
Mm, that's wonderful. So I'm curious then, if an individual did want to create one of these hashtag unify blank, whatever that might be, do they just do it? Can they go to you? Like, how do they create this? I know how that they can create it, but I mean, do they come to you and say, I want to do this, and so you help with that
No, I mean,
type of.
I'm not positioning myself in that kind of way. Hashtag unify movements and hashtag unify USA are in an emergent space, and they're open source right now. And
Okay.
like, it won't work if it's a hierarchy through me or through anything that I'm affiliated with. It's more organic, and I don't. It doesn't have to be called hashtag unify anything. It could be, call it whatever you want. It's just the idea that you can create hashtags and create a movement identity and create
Right.
okay, under this hashtag identity, this is our platform. This is what we stand for. So it
Right.
could be like at that school in California, it could be, we want the school board to listen to the parents, and that's our agenda. So we created hashtag school board accountability, or whatever, you know
Mm,
what I'm saying? So I'm just
right.
like wanting people to understand that movements can be dynamic and fun.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Food for thought. I mean, it inspires individuals to put their energy, like you said, and if they're coming from that space of love and, collective consciousness, to put their energies together under one umbrella. But yeah, I love that. And is there a section in
Yeah,
your book that covers? Go ahead.
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, well, step 7 is called unifying. So there's like the
Mm,
conceptual frameworks, or the
okay.
like the approaches to unifying are outlined there. And I end the book with saying, and what I'm doing is I've created hashtag unify, and please, if you want to go there, I feel like my job is to offer pathways of engagement. So if people want to become active, or if these revolutionary optimism book clubs want, after they've gone through the book or they're going through the book, and they say, hey, they want to do something, then my job is to say, how can I serve you? And so we're trying to develop, support. We have a companion kit, for example. We have a
Mm,
journal workbook, and we have got questions for groups to go through revolutionary optimism. And then we're developing materials for, advocacy movements that might form. But right now on the website, we have featured movements, like 25 featured movements that are really at the cutting edge of transformation. So if you want to plug in, those are the ways to do it. These are the groups that I'm a
mm,
part of and others are a part of. And there's like cross representation in these. And I'm just trying to create awareness of all these movements are happening right now, and they're all
yeah.
available for all of us to enter into.
Mm. I love that. There, you hit the nail on the head with that you have on your website all of these groups that are come together, and you can go and you can see them, look into them, join them, and get a sense of how this works. So yes, absolutely, I love that. Well,
Yeah, and
Paul,
at the
if you
local
had
level, it's more. Yeah, sorry, just quickly on the local level, I'll
go.
say,
Hmm.
I think what people are talking about and what's starting to happen is that local democracy hubs are forming. Because
Mm,
ultimately, through this passage that we're going through as humanity, we really need to develop social and community resilience, because that's where the rubber is going to hit the road, like where people are living. And so building movement networks and that are pro democracy, that really believe in a democratic approach. We're seeing a phenomena happen where local democracy hubs are coming up as well. So unify affiliates could also be, linked to those. And what people find hard once you do want to get involved is that you go out there locally even, and there's so many different organizations, you can't figure out which one. And it's like everyone wants your money and everyone wants your time. And, so I think that part of the opportunity is that during this revolutionary phase that I think we're entering, that you create movement platforms to get us through to the other side.
yes, absolutely. That wonderful. I couldn't agree with you more. There's definitely power in that for sure. Well, given all that information, where can our audience connect with you? I know you have a newsletter, you also have a podcast. Share with us where our audience can connect with you.
Yeah, the first stop would be revolutionaryoptimism.com. I would recommend your audience go there first and learn about the book and the Changemakers Companion Kit, and get resources and access to the podcast, which is interviews with inspiring leaders who struggle with optimism like we all do, and who have transcended it and who are part of these movements. We have people from all walks of life, all different perspectives, and I've learned so much on every episode. Honestly, it's a
Hmm.
great experience. And we have so that's step one. If you want to know more about me and how I can support you, you can go to drpaulzeitz.org, and there's a way to communicate directly to me through that. And then for unified movements, if you really want to get into real movement building, that's unifymovements.org. And it's still everything. All this is still emerging, but we're ready to go, and it's go time. And I just want to offer you and your audience, like, the how can I support you in what you're up to bring love-centered
Hmm.
movements and love-centered peaceful revolutions forward. I'm here to support and encourage, and that's my role right now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And we'll have all that information as well on our Epic Vision Zone bio pages. But that is terrific. You've got all these different websites that people can connect with depending on what they're looking for and what they're interested in. Now, I'm curious if there was one message, Paul, that you could share with the world, what would it be?
Hmm. That's a hard question. Uh,
I
I just
know.
want to share. I feel so blessed to be able to offer revolutionary optimism as a love offering. And my greatest dream is that we can mobilize and ourselves over this period of time and create peaceful revolutions that we can really transform our reality and live in peaceful coexistence. And we're going to have to go through healing and repair and transformation. And we can do it. I honestly believe everyone's ready. And I'm just like tapping into like that realm of possibility to say it's go time, and let's do it. Let's make it happen now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. That was a great message. And because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question, which is if your
Okay.
life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Revolutionary optimism.
I knew you were going to do that. Aside from that,
No, 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 no. There's a practice in the book. It's called a death awareness practice, which I've been living with this practice for decades. It means that, like, if for some reason I died today, I am complete. And in the past, I used to like send the latest version of my book or the latest idea I had to someone. So in case my plane went down, my ideas were going to be there. So when I was going to Israel, Palestine a couple weeks ago, I was like, I said to my oldest son, who frequently gets these messages from me, or my second son rather, and I was like, son, you don't have to do anything. This book's coming out with or without me. And so I feel complete. My life is so blessed, and I've had my challenges for sure, but to be able to like offer this, and now I'm living into that. I'm living my life as a revolutionary optimist, and that's what the show would be.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much, Dr. Paul, for joining us here today and sharing that information. And once again, for information and to connect with Dr. Paul, you can go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages where you will find all of his social media and direct contact information. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath and visit me on my website at janeapplegath.com, where you can access your free downloads, Creative Power, and Vision Play. Sending you much love. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic reality.